Good morning, YouTube. This is Nick with NK Landscaping again as usual. Today I want to show you my favorite attachment for our Kubota excavator. And before you go crazy, yes, we do have a steel wrist and I do consider that my favorite attachment, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to consider that part of the excavator since it cannot be taken off very easily. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to my personal favorite attachment for this machine, and that's going to be the Lloyd Rotastar bucket. So what exactly is this funny looking bucket? Well, you might be able to see those little plastic or poly stars in the back. This is a screening bucket, so you're going to feed this thing unscreened material. Generally, in our case, that's going to be dirt that comes off of a job, or even on site. When we do our excavation, there's going to be grass, rocks, sticks and twigs and roots and all sorts of stuff in the ground as you would normally expect to find. This will take that material and through its screening process, it will screen clean material out the back end, leaving you with the unsuitable spoils basically, or tailings inside the bucket. Then you can dump those separately and you'll have a clean material out the back. Now real quick, give you some measurements. This is the RS2-4 Rotastar bucket. This is going to be the smallest available current bucket. Cutting edge measures 32 inches. The inside opening is about 29.5 with a height of about 16 inches. That's a pretty good sized bucket. Now this is mounted to our KX33, which is considered a 3-ton excavator, weighing in somewhere the 8,000 pound range. We do have it mounted to a steel wrist, and it is a little heavy that way. You don't need to have this mounted to a steel wrist. This top plate is interchangeable. You can get this in a number of different mounts, basically to suit any excavator that you might have. So this bucket, we purchased our own with our own money. We're not sponsored by anybody. We actually purchased this from A&D Equipment. They're located in Connecticut. They're the same people that sold us this fantastic steel wrist, and they are one of the only dealers for this bucket, and that's a good thing. They are a great company to work with. Again, I'm not sponsored. I don't have to say any of this stuff. I just think that they're a great company and they sell and service great products and they stand behind everything. So the way that this bucket works, it's super simple. You have hydraulic lines. In my case, I'm running off the steel wrist, but normally if you didn't have a steel wrist, you'd just run off of your regular auxiliary lines. It doesn't take a lot of flow here. You have a flow control valve, so you can actually speed this up or slow it down on the fly right here, or you can do that on your controls in the cab. But otherwise, you only have a few different lines back here. Those lines power a small hydraulic motor, and then inside of this case, we have a simple chain and gear drive system. That system is going to propel these 3 different shafts in the back. Now, depending on what size Rotastar you have, you may have more shafts. They do get wider and taller, and some of them even have more than 3 shafts. Each one of these shafts rides back here on a pillow block bearing, and those are all greasable. But basically, all these are tied together and they rotate in this direction. Basically, those stars will rotate into each other, and that's how your clean material gets screened out. Basically, this bucket produces a 3/4 inch minus material. So yes, you are going to get some 3/4 inch, maybe a little bit larger stones that come out. That size is dictated by the space between this finger and where it meets on the inner collar there. They do sell a kit. It's called a collar kit, and that basically snaps on to these guys, and that will produce a smaller material. I believe either a 1/2 inch minus, and they may even have a 3/8 inch minus collar as well. We don't run that because we're mainly just producing semi-clean soil. So I've gone and taken the chain case cover off now just to show you exactly what's going on in here. It's just a set of 3 different chains, 3 different gears, or 3 different gear sets, technically 4 if you count the motor. But this is just standard single chain. Each one of those are separate and serviceable. The only maintenance you really need to do in here, aside from greasing, is I go in here and just clean this chain every once in a while and apply a little bit of gear lubricant just to keep everything lubricated. But otherwise, this machine is super, super simple to maintain. There's no fancy parts. You have a fully enclosed hydraulic motor that runs and is lubricated off of your hydraulics here. So there's no maintenance there. And aside from the chains, you have occasional star replacement, which I'll show you here. We've had this bucket for, I think, coming on just about 3 years now. And I've got hundreds of hours on this. And you can see, like, this one's got a little bit of wear, just probably from catching on something sharp. But otherwise, these things have almost no wear. A&D, the company that sells and services these, has many, many hundreds, if not thousands of hours on their demo buckets, and the stars look just like ours. They're very durable, and they're not very expensive if you need to replace them. So this is going to be different for everybody's machine. I have the steel wrist controller in here, but to use this Rotastar, we're going to engage our auxiliaries. That's a Kubota specific thing, and that's already set up for my steel wrist. This Rotastar is actually going to be run through the steel wrist. So what I have to do in here, I have a profile set up just for this Rotastar. Now this Rotastar works on a one-way hydraulic system, just like you would run a hydraulic breaker or something of that type. You only want flow going in one direction. Now luckily for me, the steel wrist is already set up like that. Flow goes in on one side and returns on the other. The steel wrist itself and the computer controls the two-way flow to control everything. But the Rotastar itself is going to want to run on a single direction circuit. So that's what that profile is for me here. That allows the steel wrist to only put out single direction flow. Now on your machine, you'll probably just have a thumb rocker switch that would work a thumb or any other hydraulic attachment. I have this back roll wheel. You roll it in one direction, and that causes the stars to start to spin. So I'm sure you heard, this is very quiet. Those chains don't make any noise. Plus they're enclosed inside their enclosure. But the best part about this tool is these stars do not make any noise. Since they are poly, they are flexible, they have give to them, they don't interfere with each other. So the only noise that you hear when operating this piece of equipment is the sound of the rocks and sticks tumbling around inside the bucket. So this being so quiet is good to use on a residential property because it doesn't make a whole lot of tinging and clanging noises, so you're not going to be angering anybody while you're operating this. So this bucket is made in England. You can see some specifications here. It's made by Lloyd Manufacturing or Lloyd Engineering, right in Herefordshire. I don't know anything about England, so. But anyway, this is 2022 bucket, like I said, and it weighs 250 kilograms. Now that weight is going to be without the attachment plate, so you probably add a few pounds for that. And then of course in our scenario we have the steel wrist on here, which adds quite a bit of weight. And you can imagine that is a pretty big bucket. On this 33, it does handle it no problem. Even with the steel wrist, I can take a full scoop of that bucket and still be able to control it. If you're not as skilled of an operator, that might not be as doable. It's probably better suited for a 4-ton machine, but they make a number of different size buckets. Like I mentioned, this attachment in its current state produces a 3/4 inch minus material. That means you're going to find 3/4 inch and smaller pieces of rock, sticks, twigs, or anything. These are our two screened piles of dirt that we keep on hand here at our yard. The one on the left is a topsoil material, so you'll see it's really dry here, but you're going to find things like this in there. You can screen this pile a couple times and get a majority of this stuff out, but the only way to really get it out is with those smaller collars. But you can see this makes a really nice fine material. So this is our screened topsoil. And then over here we have a clean screened fill material. Same deal. Very clean. Over here is the type of dirt that we generally pull off of job sites. We do a lot of excavation of garden beds when we tear them out, and when we do our patio installations, we're taking all the topsoil off and we're getting down to a good, suitable base. So generally what comes off of our jobs is a mix of a topsoil and sometimes sub-base material, whether that's clay or other things. But since we live in New York, you can see we have plenty of rocks. Now, this is mainly tailings. This is the stuff that comes out of that topsoil and that clean fill pile when I'm done screening it. But as you can see, there's a lot of dirt left in it. This is just a mix of junk. So I'm going to show you real quick how you can turn this stuff, which is useless in its current form, into either topsoil or a clean screen material and spit the tailings right out to the side. So now the machine is up on the pile here. I'm going to show you how easy it is. You have to keep in mind though, with this bucket, you can't scoop like a normal excavator or having a normal excavator bucket. You need to be mindful of those shafts on the back. If you take a scoop and you jam the back of that bucket into the ground, you put a lot of force on those shafts, and they're not meant to take the force. You can actually end up bending the shaft. So what you want to do with this bucket is take a shallow angle of approach. We're going to scoop in here, and instead of fully curling up, we're going to kind of pick up first and then curl up to keep those shafts off the ground. So you can see here I have a scoop of dirt. So that's what we're starting with, kind of ugly, junky dirt. And we're going to go ahead and take that, and we're going to curl, and we're going to start screening. And you're going to kind of have to shake it along to kind of get all that material to run through the fingers there. But you can see that clean material coming out, and all I'm left with now is tailings. So that's all just junk that we don't want. We're going to bring that over to the side here, and we're going to dump that. And now you just repeat that process. And this dirt is super dry, but it does work with wet dirt. It's going to be a bit slower. You're going to have to work through those clumps. But what's cool about this bucket, you can screen this dirt for as long or as short as you want. Now in this case of dry dirt, it screens pretty quick, so I don't have to screen it very long. But if this dirt was wet and clumpy, you could sit here and continually screen that to basically clean all the tailings off completely of dirt. So like I said, this pile has already been screened. This is the tailings that were left over. And what's cool about tailings is if they have a lot of organic matter in them, they're going to break down over time. So in this case, I can actually screen my tailings pile probably about 2 years later, and look at how much dirt I'm getting back out of here. And what's great about that is over time, the tailings break down and you'll be left with nothing but rock and dirt. And if you can screen the dirt out, you should just be left with a pile of rock at the end. And that's as the best recycling I can think of. And that's a big thing that we like here is recycling. We like to recycle our materials to get useful material out of what would normally be considered junk. We're going to come in here, take a scoop. Kind of shake it in place. And you can see how the stars kind of turn all that material around, so it really shakes all that dirt out of there. It's a really effective tool. And we just dump those tailings off. So again, we'll take a scoop. Shake it in there, and then we screen. So let's talk about productivity. After about an hour of screening, I'm left with what looks probably like a 10-yard pile of dirt and about 5 yards of tailings. So I basically processed 15 yards of material in an hour. Your results are going to vary. I can't tell you a number that every machine is going to put out. This material is super dry. You're going to screen way slower when it's wet, but at the same time, I'm screening through tailings. There's not a lot of dirt in here, so most of my bucket full is actually tailings. So in this case, 33%. But anyway, this is what I considered a pre-screen material. So it's been screened through once. You could see a lot of these larger chips and stuff fall out. You can see some sticks come out. Sticks are kind of the biggest enemy here because they can get past the scraper bar and get ejected. But this is much cleaner, and what I'll do, I'll let this break down a little more since we have so much topsoil made already, and this is good like compost topsoil material. I'll let this break down, get some rain on it, get this composting again, and then when it's time to put it over there into our finished pile, I'll rescreen this again and you'll get out some of the lighter stuff. But yeah, I can't really give you a good output number. In optimal conditions, I think you're capable of 20 yards per hour. That's 20 yards through the bucket. Whatever ends up coming out in tailings versus clean material will depend on what you're screening. In the wet, that depends on what you're screening too. When there's a lot of clay, it sticks to the fingers of the stars and the collars, and it really slows your output down. That can be really slow and tedious, but overall, I'd say 10 to 20 yards per hour. So now that you guys have seen this thing at work, everybody wants to know, what does it cost? That's the biggest question I get asked about the excavator, the steel wrist, the Rotastar. Now I can't give current pricing because I bought this in 2022. But in 2022, this RS2-4 bucket with the S40 steel wrist top hitch cost us just shy of $10,000. Now most people are probably gasping at that price, thinking, why would you pay $10,000 for a bucket with plastic stars that spin to screen dirt? I'll tell you why. This has been one of my favorite tools to use because in this industry, you do a lot of digging and you do a lot of hauling material and moving things around, and you get a lot of material that looks like this. And you can't do anything with this. It's only good as an unusable, unsuitable fill material that's going to break down over time, cause settling, sinkholes. It's useless. So it's a burden to have all this material usually sitting in our yard because we haul it off clients' properties. Well, if you could make a decision to turn this into a usable topsoil material or a clean screened fill material that has no organics in it, and it will compact really well, and we can use it to fill in things like dips and divots and build up areas. The topsoil, I can sell that now to clients for $50, $60 a yard. That's what topsoil goes for in our area. When we have to buy it from a nursery, that's what we're paying. So if we can then sell it to the client for the nursery cost, and it's on our property and we can sell it ourselves and all that profit is ours, does that not make sense to you? You can see how at $50 a yard, you can make a lot of money selling topsoil. Now, we're not loading other people's trucks and sending them away with our topsoil. That topsoil is specifically for us, for small projects. When we need a yard or two and either the nursery's closed or the job's right up the street, I can load it myself in my trailer, get it out of here and make some money with it. So pretty quickly, this thing becomes quite the investment. I hope you can see why that's worth $10,000. And when we heard that price, it did not sound bad to us at all. That bucket has paid for itself many times over. Well, that's a wrap on my screening for today. Got a nice large pile here, maybe 20 yards. Not too much left of my tailings or whatever you want to call that, but so let me know. What do you think? What are your comments? Does it sound worth it to you? For us, it it's been such a great attachment. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's so much better than trying to justify like a screener, one of those big portable screeners. They're huge. You can't just put them on your excavator at your leisure. They take up a lot of space. It's an extra motor or electric, versus like I have an excavator here and I can bring this anywhere on a site. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment if you think that would be cool for your business, you think it's unreasonably priced or whatever. I'll tell you what, when we get our next excavator, you surely bet that we're going to have a Rotastar for that as well. Oh, and did I mention you can mount that to a skid steer with a skid steer mounting plate. So if you only have a skid steer, you can run it on there too, and that mounting plate bolts on and off very easily. So if you want to swap back and forth, you can definitely do that. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm done for the day. Got a good amount of work done, but I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.